A maintenance guy once said he could get out of work all day by carrying a toilet plunger around. No one asked him questions or offered to help. What's your get out of work free card you use? I used to just fold a piece of paper in half and walk around the warehouse killing time. If anyone asked me to do something, I would just say, "Be right over in 2 minutes," and gesture a wave of the piece of paper, and they would always assume I was just finishing off a task. I close the door to my office and look frustratedly at my monitors. Bonus points for constantly shifting gaze from one monitor to the other and clicking furiously. I'm a software developer associate. In my previous office job, if I wasn't too busy and felt like a break, I'd pick up my laptop and a manila folder full of paper and walk down the street to a cafe. I figured that if anybody saw me, they'd think I was on my way to a meeting or still working, rather than reading the newspaper or planning my next holiday. When you look annoyed all the time, people think you're busy. George Constanza. I work in hospitality and live by this quote. My boss thinks I'm busy, my coworkers think I'm busy, and that gives me a chance to never have to deal with customers or problems. Open up a random folder spreadsheet, unhide several of the hidden pages, and delete some of the formulas, which will inevitably cause many other formulas to collapse. Then all you have to do is tell people you're trying to fix whatever went wrong. Anyone who doesn't know Excel will look at it and think you're knee deep in it and won't volunteer to help, while anyone who does know Excel will recognize how badly the sheet is messed up and won't want to help, so will say nothing. At my former job, I had to have an walkie-talkie with me at all times. Walkie-talkies came with a bell ring button that goes both ways. When my team wanted to disappear, we would ring one specific sound and would tell other people that we were needed somewhere else. We also had another specific sound that was a signal for a coffee break that wasn't the regular one. Sometimes I would press the button without the other people around me noticing and just leave. I miss that job. It was stressful as duck, but I had fun with my team. By the way, this was made with our direct boss permission because he didn't wanted other teams seeing that we had more free time than them. His rule was, if you had nothing to do at the moment, disappear. Don't linger where you are not needed. I drive a service truck for work, and the rule of thumb is that the trucks shouldn't be seen at the shop unless there's a reason. If a guy finishes up early, takes personal time and goes home, it's no big deal. But if he goes to the shop to hang out with the other drivers who did the same thing, people start asking my boss uncomfortable questions. So we don't go back to the shop. A clipboard. In the army, I used to arm myself with a clipboard and walk around the motor pool muttering to myself, "Stop, sit in a vehicle, write letters to mom, open the hood, lean into engine compartment, write letters to girlfriend." Nobody ever asked. I worked as a night watchman for most of my life. LOL. Additionally, I employed little motion detecting modules to alert me to when someone coworker, trespasser, supervisor, manager, client was approaching, so I could be all alert and not sleeping by the time they arrived. I had 20 years at one site where I could do practically anything non-work related and get away with it. The crazy shit I did. Man oh man. Good times. In related news, if you ever go to prison, you can carry some books. To get through controlled access points, they won't even think to ask you where you're going. You have books, you can't be up to no good. You're obviously trying to read and better yourself. Code is compiling. I'm stress testing. Just being out and about with a box of tools and my laptop. Standing next to a cable closet looking busy. I'm LSO able to squeeze the cheap anti-stress doll so hard around the neck that the head pops off. Works well if the bean counter opens the door. You stare at the monitor. He starts speaking. You reach over, grab the doll, and explode the head. People tend to get that I better be left alone with that, and that asking me for a 4-hour meeting will have consequences. You're that one weird coworker that everybody low-key expects to snap and shoot up the place someday. You describe 9-10 sysadmins at my workplace. The 10th one is me. I'm in Germany, so I do not have access to guns. But my fantasy is, if I'm ever again invited to a 4-hour meeting, that could have been an email And my part in this is 2 sentences amounting to yes, I installed it. I want to disembowel the meeting holder, wrap his entrails around his neck, open the window and throw him out. So he hangs from the side of the building as a warning to others. But sadly, 1, they pay me well. During the pandemic even more than usual. And all the overtime I want. Pager duty 7 days a week is nice. 2, they don't force me to sit in useless meetings too often. Only about once every quarter. And then, I have learned to listen to music when I'm not needed. And the coffee is good. 3, my hatred for customers eclipses my hatred for coworkers. 4, up until the pandemic, I would go to the gym twice a week and lift heavy things to get rid of my aggressions. I'm misanthropic and mean. Shooting up is something for the upper management types. The ones that find a fingernail has a hangnail, scream there is no God, and the next day, they enter work with an ack. If I ever flip, I just implement everything that people who make a decimal point more than me without using proper common sense. The last time I did that, it was a automated away system for his bridge list. What he would have gotten if he had asked for my opinion is that the boss is a type of person that subscribes to every newsletter he can for entertainment value and prints out funny web pages to share, and he is an abridged list mailing list with other important people. I tried to format it correctly. I tried to fix it, but he insisted that it be implemented the way he wrote down. So I did, meaning the boss Rick C3 read an email from his list list. The away system sent out one that said boss is not there, on vacation. Newsgroup sent back email saying boss says boss is not there, on vacation. Away team receives the email and says, boss not there, on vacation. Let's just say the boss was not amused. Screamed at me for 30 minutes. And I simply handed him the printouts where the manager said I had to implement it the way he wrote it down, or there would be repercussions. I was allowed to leave with just a personal warning that the next time I saw the potential for backups, I was allowed to disregard any orders if I came straight to him. Last I saw of incompetent manager, they served him a spaghetti and meatball dinner behind the old barn, and everyone tells me he found a new workplace upstate. If I really wanted to create chaos and punish people, a gun would be the last thing I would use. I'm a teacher and my last boss, the head at the time, used to often jog everywhere around the school rather than walk. I once commented on how busy he always was when he told me his secret, that if he ran, everyone thought he was busy so would not ask questions. As I have risen up in school hierarchy I have remembered this and, on a bad day, will just jog from place to place. And he is right, no one will stop you to tell you about the latest kid being a dick. I worked at Walmart during the pandemic. They had very strict COVID measures. I got sent home with pay twice for having a fever and once because I was coughing during my screening. Total, I got 30 days off paid in less than 3 months. All my COVID tests came back negative. I probably could have faked coughing to just get more time off. Manual labor. The management tends to be not well organized. They won't notice if my coffee break lasts until the end of my lunch break. And in some companies, you can even just start working without being hired, and you'll be paid if you sign the attendance card. I was sick after the vaccination, and I just didn't show up without any word and signed the attendance card the next day with full 8 hours. They just paid for that without saying a word, despite of the fact that I was supposed to take a sick day and be paid by the insurance. Used to work in a law office. They grew quickly and kind of Frankensteined the space, taking on whatever part of the building and adjacent buildings they could get their hands on. Many of the spaces didn't have a shared entrance, so you'd have to walk out of one building and enter the door right next to it. The original office space was on the 2nd floor and had so little room they'd store files anywhere they could, including closets. The newer additions were organized with cabinets along all the walls, but the original space was much more like of the drawer. They kept extensive records and maps of which files where were, and employed more people than they had to. Whatever business was good, and they didn't have time for a revamp. I started out as a filing clerk before moving on to something more lucrative, but I remembered all the little filing nooks. One in particular was through a tiny door under the stairs. It was packed to the wall with super old files and no one ever went there. So whenever I had to find a file for something, I'd find it quickly and head over to the nook under the stairs. If anyone called me, I was super busy looking and ultimately was the hero for finding the file. I kept comic books there, a book from the June series, snacks and a blanket. It was my once a week getaway where I could relax and enjoy myself for an hour or so. I worked hard for them, but sometimes I needed to decompress. I loved that space so much that when I started hooking up with a girl from the office, I never took her there. Found a different spot for our shenanigans because that was for me. Now, John, you've got to wear clothes in proportion to your physique. There are definite do and don'ts, good buddy, of wearing a bold striped shirt. A bold striped shirt calls for solid colored or discreetly patterned suits and ties. Yes, always tip the stylist 15%. Listen, John, I've gotta go. Boon Pickens just walked in. Just joking. No, don't tip the owner of the salon. Okay, John. Right. Got it. When time off school conflicted with my mom's military job, I'd sit beside her desk all day. When she went to lunch, instead of walking all the way around a building, like we are supposed to, we'd cut straight through with a clipboard. No questions asked. Once she sent me alone. I was stopped as soon as I got in the door with her pass. When they asked what I was doing, I said filling out paperwork and waved the board around like I had seen her do. Dude went back to ratcheting stuff onto a crate and I just kept walking. First time I ever felt like a badass. I was 14. This isn't my story, but I'm borrowing it from a friend. When he was younger, he worked on an offshore drilling platform. He saw a guy there walking around carrying a 3 feet long pipe wrench. He saw this guy several times, just walking around carrying a large pipe wrench. He finally asked the guy what he was doing, and his response was almost the OP word for word. Supervisors assumed he was going somewhere or doing something with that wrench and never questioned him about it. I was a smoker, and when in the mood for a cigarette, I'd grab a couple of documents, head out the door, through the parking lot, up some back stairs, etc. I was the troubleshooter for a CNC router table in the woodworking department, as well as the pre-press guy in the graphics department. I pretty much set my own schedule, especially when working second shift. That job in different forms lasted almost 25 years. I suppose it's a bit outside the scope of the question, but I have so little workload I can take days off every week and no one notices. When I do go to work, I'm lucky enough to have my own office isolated from the normal office spaces, so I can be close to my work area. If anyone enters my work area, I can hear the door, and after a while I'll enter the area via another entrance and roll my tools around and appear to be working. Sometimes I'll rush past with some random documents and tools and say hi in passing. If my normal tasks require me to lift something heavy, I'll leave that task until people come by and ask them to help me move it. That way they think I'm always moving heavy stuff. A few people may have caught on, but management is a sight, and I do the few tasks I have on time, so no complaints so far. Sitting at my desk with headphones on, everyone assumes I'm on a Teams call just listening in, or taking minutes, and leaves me alone to work in peace. This works because I have a corner desk with nobody behind me. If they could see my screen, they would know I'm just cracking on with other stuff. You could probably carry a clipboard with papers on it and a pen and look important enough to get out of a lot of different situations, as long as you are dressed in the uniform of the place, or you have a suit and tie on, or you have on other clothing that matches the scenario. I can see why the toilet plunger would discourage people to ask what you were doing. Not getting out of work, but getting on job sites. My fav team was building a new stadium and I wanted to see what my view was from certain seats to help me pick location. So I put a safety vest, hard hat on, grabbed a clipboard, and walked right by security with a DSL camera around my neck. Nobody asked a single question for over an hour while I gave myself a solo self-tour of the entire facility. Taking something to the dumpster. I take one pizza box, not allowed to have branded stuff in our regular garbage cans because the RM is a ducking psychopath, and walk all the way around the building. Toss it in the dumpster. Chill out for a couple minutes and walk all the way back. give or take a 20-minute errand if I walk slowly. In my current job I have a lot of downtime, and our boss knows that and doesn't give a shit what we do as long as we answer the phone and the email box. I don't have to use a get out of work card, which is amazing. However, if I'm working by myself and would rather not deal with coworker so, by myself as the only person in my department in our department office, but with other staff in other departments and areas, I put on the headset that I bought myself from Amazon for $20. I do actually use it for assessments, but if people are knocking on my door or whatever, I just point to it and mouth phone. Then whenever I'm done with whatever I was doing, I can go hunt down the person and see what they wanted, all on my own schedule. At a previous job with lots of downtime, I'd say I was going into the community, which was one of my duties. Although the full duty was to go into the community to meet with residents and go sit in a coffee shop or shop. I didn't do it often, but no one asked questions when I went into the community as long as I was in the office for part of the day. I was an apprentice industrial electrician. It was nearly a daily occurrence for me to finish a task and have some downtime to kill. I would hook my tape measure on my belt and wander around, looking up at the overhead conduits periodically. Nobody really cared anyway, but I learned having the tape measure generally prevented questions from being asked. I use automation. I had a part-time computer desk job hidden away in a basement office that I didn't care about losing. It made me a bit of beer money, and it was stupid simple, so I did what you never do and automated the heck out of it. Excel macros, some Python scripts, and a mouse and keyboard recorder repeater to automate the things I didn't know how to. I would get everything going on 2 machines and browse the web with a 3rd laptop and goof off in plain sight. It literally required 10 minutes of initial setup time, and it would run for 2 hours. Rinse, wash, repeat. Anytime someone happened to wander by, they see 2 computers running by themselves, opening and closing windows, copying data, and all other sorts of technical magic. My boss only questioned me about it once and was satisfied I was 50% more productive with far less errors than my predecessor. He realized his numbers would look even better, and I was best left to my own devices. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.